All right, cool. Well, hey, welcome back, everybody, to Lunch Money. My name is Scott Schnaars. I'm here with my good friend, Edan Gottlib, and today we are going to be diving into a topic that has been on the minds of a lot of salespeople. It's been on the minds of a ton of CEOs right now with all of the vibe coding that's happening in the world. And it might be haunting some SaaS sales leaders lately, and that is the topic of product-led growth versus traditional SaaS sales. So we want to talk today about whether or not PLG is killing sales teams. I don't think that it is. Whether or not it is upsetting sales teams, we think that it probably is. Or if there's room for both a direct sales organization and a PLG motion, and what's happening out there.
Yeah, and this kind of really it's home for us because we met and worked together over in Cloudinary, which was pure PLG company when we joined it with really few sales reps that did some things over there and not really a clear kind of motion of how to do it, kind of thing. And there was a strong philosophy of, no, the product says itself and you just swipe the card and the money flows in, and do we even need salespeople kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I think that they realized that they did, and part of the reason that you and I were brought onto the team was that the company was just leaving tons of money, literally millions of dollars on the table by not having sales involved in the process. And you and I came in to really shift that shifted from like a purely PLG-led motion to building out an enterprise sales team. And we basically did that from scratch. And now it's kind of interesting. It seems like when I still talk to people there, like they're starting to think about moving back towards more of a PLG type of motion and really focus on kind of growing SMBs there. So interesting.
Yep. Yeah, and this brings us to the topic of today's conversation. Really, it's kind of like what's going on in the whole PLG world and how sales fits into that one. Is it product-led growth, sales-led growth? Where's the growth, and what's leading what? So I think that's a very topical item for us.
So I think that's good. Like so if we set the stage and people say, when you hear the term PLG, what exactly are they talking about? Like what's going on? What does product-led growth really mean?
So it's funny because I think the first notion is that product-led growth is product sells itself, right? The users sign up and they put the credit card and boom, we got revenue going, and you don't need salespeople, you don't need anything. And it's like, and you think about these companies that started off with this, like Atlassian's and Notion and others. This is it. This is, free money kind of thing.
Right, but that's where everybody loves free money, but it's where things get really sticky, especially for sales leaders when they hear their company is going to dip their toe into PLG, or they are looking for a job right now and they're thinking about a PLG-led organization. It's not uncommon for them to go like, oh my God, like, is this going to upset my job? Am I out of a job as a result of this? Like, what do I do? We're going to PLG. Stuff is going to be free. We don't need sales team anymore. Nightmare stuff.
And it's exactly kind of that problem of you hear that, then you kind of freak out. And a few things, I think, first of all, PLG doesn't mean there's no sales. It means it's a different configuration. And I think you have to be kind of conscious to it. I would add one more to it. It's people freak out, especially in sales, when you hear PLG, and because of two reasons. One, there's a feeling of a value diminished for salespeople. It's like, oh, we don't need sales anymore. Finally, we figure out the formula. Not needing one. And the other one is the felt of there's lost opportunity, right? Things that should be going through this get somehow stuck, and probably we'll get in and dive into the mechanics of PLG and sales and how it should work together. But I think these are the two things that really freak out everybody in sales when there's a PLG discussion kind of bubbling up.
But it doesn't mean like you're completely getting rid of the sales organization, right? Like it means like sales just shows up a little bit later, and hopefully they're showing up in a smarter way. And you're cold call, and a lot of times you're cold calling, not even cold calling. You're talking to people who are warm, who are already using the product. Hopefully they're getting value out of it, which in theory should make everybody's life a lot easier. Reality, it's not always that clean, especially if the product wasn't built for land and expand right out of the gate.
Yeah, but think about it. You got this massive database of users to start working off of.
Right.
And we could talk about the mechanisms of like, how do we connect these all together? But yeah.
Well, I think it's like, it was nice because we had at Cloudinary, we had a massive list of free users. A big part of the challenge was how do we figure out how to get them to enterprise? And that's really what took the sales work there. It was like picking up the phone, calling these existing customers and say, hey, you're using this today. Seems like you're getting value out of it. You're a huge company. How come you're only using it for this one little use case? And having that discussion, really kind of changing the perspective of these people and going from this like single developer that's using Cloudinary for one little use case to expanding that out to a much more larger experience for that company. So,
Yeah,
so
and I
if
think
we,
you're
if we
touching on an
talk about,
important.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yep. No, go ahead. Take your right.
Well, I was gonna talk about like when you think about where sales fits in a PLG company, it seems like that's where a lot of the tension is. So when you and I were building sales at Cloudinary, let's talk about like where did we start?
Yeah, and then to kind of just clarify that I think the question starts really this kind of how does the sales and PLG kind of fit and work together, and what maybe is the kind of the flow between them. And kind of to my earlier point, this is you have a massive user database that you could start working off of. And if you think about it, it is not a database of names. You should look at it as database of signals, because these is not just a bunch of names that you acquired or list. These are people that are doing stuff within your platform or within your network, and you can start picking up on the signals. And to your other point about developers are starting to do bigger things, that you can look at the signals and say, okay, if I map out what they do to a specific set of use cases, I can kind of project what are they trying to do it for. And I can pick the point that I would say, okay, at this point, I need to step in because the scope gets bigger than what the self-service or the PLG motion use case scope was designed for. And so you basically get this live database with a lot of signals and indications that you could leverage in terms of like getting connected with them. And as you mentioned, be valuable, because if the use case gets bigger, then they're going to have more assistance than what the product was designed for. And that's there's different names that people give this stuff: sales-led, sales assist PLG, sales-led, product-led sales. There's all sorts of names, but that's the notion of you have a way to go connect with them.
And the nice part about it, like, and I like how you just use the term sales assisted PLG, because it created warm leads. These were not cold calls. These were people that were already using the product. If you need help with cold calling, you should check out our episode from last week where we talked about whether or not cold calling was dead, and emphatically agreed that it was not dead. But back to PLG,
and not dead at the same time. Yeah,
right. It was Schrodinger's outbound. That's a science joke. So PLG, like when I think about like what it did for us, though, is it gave us a very different kind of pipeline. But you still needed to have hunters going outbound to identify who some of these big whales were based on the signals that we were able to find there.
Yep. And that's kind of the notion of when the use case goes beyond the self-service intended use case, you will need more than just the technology lane or just the tech part in what they want to do. You're going to need to have other groups in the organization being involved, whether it's if the price gets higher, you need to get legal involved, you need to get procurement involved, you sometimes need to sell it to the executives and the financial stuff and secure budget. So you start getting into a scope that is bigger than I'm trying to do one thing. This is a tool to hit this box and go forward.
Yeah. So this is another one of these, it kind of just like AI, right? It gets you in the door, but It doesn't close the deal for you. And I think that we've said that a lot in this podcast is like, this is another one of these tools that you use to get in the door. And then once you're in the door, you as a sales professional need to go figure out how to close this. And a lot of times when I think back to some of the bigger deals that we did there, we were the ones calling up and just saying, hey, like you're on this tiny plan. You're a multi-billion-dollar Fortune X company. You're spending $25 a month, and most of our other customers are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Like, why is that? What's up with that? And I think that created a great opportunity. Just picking up the phone and calling and figuring that out was such an eye opener for so many of the deals that we had.
Yeah, because you got to think, add these dimensions to now your selling motions when you do it through, PLG Assist or whatever we want to call it. that you really are connecting to how do I help these guys get to what they're trying to do? So how do they expand? And so I look at their scope as not at the end game, but as the beginning, but also some of the things they want to do have implications on the company, right? So if I'm trying to, for instance, use that technology to something that is broadly used or mission critical, there are requirements in the company that I'll have to comply with that I need to make sure that I do it. So I need to support them. So it's especially in the enterprise, you got to connect it and bring the humans that they're starting with the tech side to get everything done so they can do what they wanted to do. And so you got to think about, you thought about it as, oh, it's a great lead engine. It's a good engagement to close a deal. It's also a great expansion and retention kind of motions for you as a sales rep that you can get more and more money out of there. Yeah.
It's huge for that. But if we flip the script a little bit,
Let's flip it.
PLG by itself, I think that there's a lot of areas where if you just have PLG without a sales organization, it does fall flat on its face. Do you see that as well? And if so, like, what are a couple of the use cases where you do see that?
I think item number one, we'll start with complex use cases. The more complex the use case becomes, the more you'll need help. It's no longer a single task that you're trying to automate in a certain way with technology. And so a single developer will get in trouble if the use case gets more complicated. Not because of technical capability, by the way. Yeah.
Right. And I think that if they do get into trouble, they start making those mistakes. If they don't have anybody there to guide them, they're likely going to churn. And we did see that a lot where, people are trying to scale up and they were doing it incorrectly. And then they come and they're like, you know what? I tried this thing and it didn't work. And by the way, I'm guilty of that myself with PLG technology that I try out. Is sometimes if it's too complex, it just doesn't work. I just kind of assume it doesn't work, and that's how they designed it. And if I got a phone call from somebody or even a chat message from somebody saying, hey, like, I've noticed you've been banging your head on the wall trying to fix something for the last, 10 minutes, do you want some help with that? I would love it. I'm dealing with that with one of the products I work with now, and I'm really frustrated. And I'm like, oh, well, it just doesn't work. I'm going to go use something else.
And it, on the telltale on this one is that sometimes you'll set stuff up in the wrong motion and you'll have to untangle it when you try to go and take it to the next level. But to add to this, so there's that layer of, and I'm trying to get stuff done and working, and I'm recomplexing it. There's the other thing of, we started touching on, when I'm in a large enterprise, I have other things that I have to start taking into account now if it's beyond my, my basic kind of task that I was doing. And things like security and compliance. There's a whole motion that is very human oriented about going through an audit and about figuring out what the customer is. And it's not just a technical thing that you could do, is it security compliant? Yes or no? It's not just a questionnaire thing. And so you need to bring this in. And again, this is where you'll need some kind of a commercial team that can help you do that as you're trying to expand in the larger enterprises.
Yeah. And similarly, I don't think I've ever met a CFO that likes to pay list price for software, especially if they're buying a lot of it. They're going to want to negotiate, and they're not just going to go and approve a big spend because of product school. They want to squeeze price. They want to figure out terms. They want to figure out payment plans, like all of those things. And they're going to need somebody to help out with that. And that's just not something that today that a chatbot's going to be able to do in the background on a PLG product.
No, or they would feel comfortable about it. It's not like a checkbox. So what happened in that, if this will be your exclusive motion, you're going to cap yourself out with a certain deal size. When you spend $5 million or something, it will not be a click-through that you will go with. You would want to set it up, and you will want to look at somebody in the face. You can call them when something goes back. If you go mission-critical things, right, it's not even the price. It's where it comes into our enterprise. So if you choose not to, you'll be capped. You'll be capped at the type of use cases, sizes of deals, sizes of companies you'll be able to work with, and be stuck with it.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of the ugly parts of PLG and sales at the same time. Why is it so difficult? Like we saw a lot of challenges at Cloudinary. I know a lot of companies are trying to figure it out, but like what are the things that make it so difficult?
I'll start with two, I think, the big things that are there. That's I would call it comp and credit.
Absolutely.
And so I think it starts with the compensation. Yes. I think it starts with the compensation package, right? It's like, how do you compensate things? And it gets murky and messy really, really fast. It signed up through PLG, so it doesn't belong to sales, or and so there's how you get the money, And there's the second one, who gets the credit? It's like, oh no, the PLG team did this, and not just from a comm standpoint, but just the credit standpoint. So the first order of business that you get in trouble and everything collapses on you and creates the problem is that get the comps, get the credit clear between the two.
Yeah. And even before that, even before like the salespeople are on fighting for commission and compensation and credit, there's lead ownership fights. If a user comes in, they sign up and then they get big enough for the enterprise, is it sales that comes in? Does sales need to be invited in by the CS team? Like, you really have to define these clear rules of engagement, and they're difficult because there's so much ambiguity happening about when somebody came in, how long were they there, how fast did they grow. All of these things make it really tough to write these ROEs for sales, CS, SDRs, literally everybody involved.
Yep, and it's kind of inherited from the credited comp that we talked about just a second ago, because if it now connects to how people get credit or how get paid, then it becomes a lot more murky. It's like, no, if he signed up to this, then he's mine. And people don't follow up with it correctly, or can I follow up on these things, or can I not follow up on these things? So I think it's all kind of related. And I think it will bring me to my next point, that I think the next layer that happens is kind of I'll call it culture tension or culture wars. And probably has different layers to it. I would say the first one kind of is a philosophical approach to it. There's the philosophy of they're going to figure it out. The whole point is let users do what they want to do. Don't interrupt. Don't engage. Let them do it. They came to self-service because they want to self-service it. They don't want to talk to anybody. Versus the other one says, no, you got to go. Let me talk to them. We need to talk to them and help them and make sure that they're successful. So there's a philosophical friction that you start off with in this process.
You also have a product friction, and meaning, like, how do you prioritize features? If you've got 1,000 free customers who are asking for something, do you prioritize that over a handful of customers paying you $50,000 a year? And at what point, like, where is that trade-off there? Like, yeah, you've got a lot of people asking for this one thing, but you've got a few people who actually give you money asking for this other thing. And that becomes a really difficult trade-off to think about too, because you built this company around kind of free, put it on a credit card type of business, but you've got this other group of customers here who are actually paying your bills and keeping you afloat. Like, you don't want to piss them off either. And if there's conflict there, like from a product standpoint, it's really difficult to figure out how to prioritize that.
Well, now that you mentioned money, then you probably get the third layer of the problem, which is finance. If you go and play the extreme, finance will say, hey, PLG is free money. I don't have to pay for salespeople and all this stuff. People just come in automatically and do it.
We got a good website, free money.
And sales, I have to pay all these people and things like that. So now you added the layer of friction of like, is it a better cost of sale? Is it a better, lifetime value? Is it a better cost structure? You get into all this murkiness as well on top of it. So you kind of create this whole section or segments of conflicts within your company if you don't set it up right.
Yeah. And we saw that. We saw that a lot. And as we built out the sales organization, I feel like literally everybody in the company was pushing back on us for various reasons that we just mentioned. And it took a long time to align. So I would say anybody who's thinking about this should really kind of, as you start to bring on a sales organization for your PLG company, really start to think about what those rules of engagement are and how do you avoid that. I like the way that you said it, Don, those cultural tensions.
So what's the answer? Who's winning? What do you do with this?
I mean, I feel like I'm a big Darwin fan, so I feel like it's evolving. And to me, it's about adding sales to PLG, but you shouldn't think about replacing one with the other. I think that if you can figure out a way to use them hand in hand, you'll find that PLG, gets you new leads, it warms them up. But to grow and to close and to expand and to retain those, you absolutely positively need a sales organization to be part of that.
Yeah, and I think, as you know me, I like, as you pointed out, adding it to. I'm a big proponent of multiple avenues for revenue. And so building on top of it and adding is important. So I think adding the sales motions into the PLG is probably the way to go. But you have to think about it and start thinking about it from a different perspective. It's not the old school or of like, okay, there's a inbound and there's an outbound and then there's a lead, and you got to be thinking about it in a slightly of a different dimension in terms of like there's a commercial group called sales that are catering to different customers in different stages in their buying journey, and they go through different types of journeys. And so some of them I'll close them as they come in because this is their deal and they're coming in. Some of them I'll figure out that something's going on through my database of signals and connect with these guys and either close them or maybe expand them or help retain them or make sure that they are successful in what they want to do. So the field of playing is changing from the traditional kind of simple lanes into a slightly more sophisticated kind of journey related, and really identifying this is where a professionally commercial team will make a significantly positive impact on it.
Yeah. And, they'll only make that impact though if you have your incentives aligned, I think. Like if you have to make sure that product and growth and sales and SDR and like everybody has to be working together and not fighting over who gets credit. Because if you're the CEO, if you're the CRO of one of these companies, every day you're going to have, a bunch of people coming to you asking for credit for something that they may or not have done, but they're adding value to things. So you really want to make sure that you take that into consideration.
Yep. And as a sales leader, if you find yourself freaking out over PLG or PLG, here's what you can do about it. Take the ownership of it, right? Make sure that everything we talked about gets aligned, right? Align where do we come in and make a contribution? Align the compensations and the credit structure. Make sure that everybody's kind of working together with product and with growth and with customer success. It really is a broader than, go kill some things and drag them in. Kind of an opportunity. So that really is the action that you can take into when PLGs come in. And again, it's very rewarding in terms of both money and success if you go about doing it.
That's exactly right. So I think that's it for today. If you are trying to build out a sales team in a PLG company, or you're trying to add PLG to a sales-led organization, hit one of us up. Find us on LinkedIn. Edan and I have been there. We've got the battle scars to prove it. And can probably help save at least a couple of headaches for you. So if you're in that position, give us a ring.
And just a public service announcement: if you like this, you subscribe, share, give us comments. We're working every week to try and make it more concise and more actionable and more insightful things you guys want. So hope to see you there.
See you next time on Lunch Money.
See you there.